So, Fantastic Publishing, you always accuse me of not actually editing or filming when I say I am when you're live. Here's proof that I do.
I understand that too.
Okay, now we gotta turn you off.
Who are you?
Who are you?
You know who I am. What's your name, Spirit?
What's your name, Spirit?
I'm going to take this sword of the Spirit, I'm going to put it right through you. You're going to feel it. And you're going to learn you do what I, as the man of God, say. You got that? What is your name?
Inger.
Say God! Look at this, there's a pit. Want the sword again?
Pit.
Come on! Come on! Come on! Help me cast this thing out! Every part of your life where this curse was.
For every man, woman, and child.
Clap your hands up there. Let's go for this.
For every man, woman, and child.
On the run.
For every man, woman, and child. For every man, woman, and child.
Devil on the run.
For every man, woman, and child.
Clap your hands up there. Let's go for this.
Is someday
We're gonna put the devil on the run.
someday among you.
Really?
Stand her body up now. I said stand her body up right now. It's an order in the name of Jesus. Stand up. Her body up. Make her body follow me. Bring her to me.
Come on.
Every fiery dart. Right now. Take it out, Satan. Remove it. Remove it. Take it all out. Remove it. All of your handiwork, take it out. Take it out. Take it out. Remove it. Remove all the darts. Remove all the darts. Bring her body back. Bring her body back. Take the sword. Right there. The sword. The sword. The sword. Say, I sing. Bound to my kingdom.
My kingdom,
Bound to all sickness
sickness,
and cancer.
and cancer.
Receive God's judgment.
Receive God's judgment.
And we go now
And we go now
to
to
the
the
pit.
pit.
Come out. Trash can. Out. Come out. Come out. 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 Out.
You know what? I get so sick and tired of watching this crap, so I decided to finally actually talk to a real exorcist. The guy's name is Father Vincent Lampert. He is the exorcist from the Diocese of Indianapolis. And I'm just tired of the misinformation about demons and possession and exorcisms, and I'm tired of watching these fake priests, these guys that get ULC ordained, call themselves archbishop, priest, exorcist, whatever they want to call themselves, and it's all an image thing with them, and they're doing real damage to people. So let's go ahead and talk to Father Vincent, and let's see what he has to say about the whole thing. Thanks for joining me. I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. I've seen you on some other podcasts before, and I'm like, I've got to get this guy on, because the purpose of me having you on is there's a lot of malarkey that goes on in the paranormal community, as far as, like priests and exorcists and demons and all that stuff. So I wanted to have you on here to talk about reality versus, fiction, or, what people are doing on YouTube. So yeah, I do have some questions. So like, first of all, can you give me your background in the Catholic Church, like your, I guess your history of your career?
Yep. All right. So I'm Father Vincent Lampert. I was ordained a priest on June the 1st of 1991 for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. So I've been a priest now 33 years.
Oh wow.
19 years ago, my bishop appointed me to be the exorcist for the diocese. And then in the early part of 2006, I lived in Rome for 3 months and did my training.
Okay. So how long does it take to become an actual priest? Because that's another problem in the paranormal world, is there's a lot of guys running around with like ULC ordinations, and they give themselves grand titles such as archbishop, and there's a lot of priests running around that aren't priests. How long did it actually take you to become a priest? What's the process?
To be ordained a priest, you have to
Yeah.
have a bachelor's degree in any subject with a minor in philosophy, and that qualifies you to go to graduate studies for 4 years to receive a master's in divinity.
Okay.
So it could take 8 or 9 years of study before one is ordained a priest.
Okay. So okay, that's quite a bit different than a lot of the people in the paranormal field. They literally get these ULC degrees and call themselves archbishops and priests and exorcists, and I personally know a few that do that. So it's like I said, I wanted to have a real sanctioned Catholic exorcist on to talk. Let's see. So you've already answered this. When you were appointed as the exorcist to your diocese, why did they choose you? I mean, why? I mean, you didn't apply, I assume. And I've got to state this too. A lot of this, like I said, I've watched podcasts with you on and stuff. So some of these questions I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Catholic belief is that the bishop of the diocese is the exorcist. It's based on chapter 9 of Luke's gospel, where Jesus sends the 12 out and gives them authority over unclean spirits. Catholics believe that the bishops are the successors to the apostles, so they have this authority. And then at their discretion, they can appoint one or more of the priests of the diocese to do this ministry in their name.
Okay.
The bishop who appointed me I went to college seminary in southern Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
It's St. Meinrad. It's a Benedictine arch abbey. So Benedictine monks that are teaching classes on theology. The rector, Father Daniel Beekline, ended up becoming the Archbishop of Indianapolis. So he knew me during my seminary studies. And he told me that he selected me because he wanted a priest who believed in the reality of evil, but not one who would be too quick to believe that everyone who reached out to me, who said that they were dealing with the demonic, that would actually be the case.
Yeah.
So he wanted a priest that he thought would bring a good balanced judgment to the situation of demonic affliction.
Mm-hmm. And what is the process that the Catholic Church goes through to determine that it's not a physical, medical, mental issue?
Mm-hmm.
Any, that kind of stuff.
Catholic exorcists are trained to be skeptics. We should be the last person to believe that it's truly extraordinary demonic activity. Every other possible explanation needs to be pursued. Because I even would say that the church would cause greater harm if she labels someone as being possessed, and
Right.
that label prevents them from getting the true help that they might need. So there's a protocol that's used in the United States that requires a person to have some type of a mental health evaluation. They need to have some type of a physical evaluation, because the church is asking experts in the mental health field and the medical field, is there something about this person's condition that you simply cannot explain based on your expertise?
Right.
And then that would allow me then to take their judgment. Now, I'm not asking them, hey, do you think this person is possessed? I will make that judgment myself.
Right.
But I want the best possible information that I can get. And then I would sit down with the person and do an intake questionnaire. There's a series of questions that the Vatican Course on Exorcism has put out. And I would use these questions to determine if this truly is demonic, what was the entry point? What did a person do that opened up a doorway for the demonic into their life?
What are some of the entry points that you look for?
Probably the most common one I would say is ties to the world of the occult. If you think of New Age activities, things like that. The word occult comes from the Latin word occultus. It means hidden or secret, and it focuses on knowledge of the paranormal. So people can get engaged in the world of the occult. They might think it's fun and entertaining, but they may not fully understand that they could be opening up a doorway for the demonic into their life.
Right.
You look at the world today, whether people are interested in magic, whether it's ghost hunting, witchcraft, psychics and mediums and crystals, tarot cards, horoscopes, all that type of thing. Because there is a power behind occult activities, but that power doesn't rest with the individual. That power resides with the demonic presence, if you will, that's operating behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So how many requests for help do you get per month, let's say? Because you probably get multiple a day, I would imagine.
I get 3,500 requests a year.
Wow.
So I average about 70 a week.
Yeah.
And they come from all over. Some exorcists are publicly known, like myself. So we would receive a lot more.
Yeah.
Some prefer to remain anonymous. But when my bishop appointed me, he said that if I wanted to be public, I could, as a way to help educate people about what the Catholic Church actually believes and teaches about the reality of evil, the devil, and the ministry of exorcism. So it's a way to give people factual information.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not people agree with that, that's up to them. But at least it's very clear what the Catholic perspective is on this whole world of demonic activity.
Yeah, and I personally think that's smart, and that's another reason, like I said, why I wanted to have you do this with me is because I want the official Catholic Church's position, because there's so much in the paranormal community that have no clue what the real Catholic Church even says about the subject. So they're running around screaming demon all the time, and a lot of paranormal teams, and maybe this is something that you've encountered too. So of those requests that you get, how many of those, and maybe you don't know the answer, but do a lot of those come from people that have said such and such paranormal team told me I had a demon, so that's why I'm reaching out to you? You get quite a few of those, or is that?
I do, where
Okay.
people have been diagnosed by others. It's almost like then they get a prescription and then they bring it to me and want me to fill it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can't just take their recommendation.
Yeah.
I have to follow the protocols that the church has put into place.
One of the things too that I've heard is that you guys have to have some kind of evidence, of demonic activity in a house, let's say. So does the Catholic Church use paranormal teams, or how do they get in, and are they looking for evidence such as video evidence, or what, or is that just a complete falsehood that doesn't even exist, that there's no need for evidence to be shown?
Yeah, the church would not look for that type of evidence because evil spirits can manipulate all of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And even use some of those types of things as a way to deceive people.
Okay.
The interesting thing about evil spirits, I mean, some of it might get a little bit technical, but evil spirits as spirits, they don't live in an address. They don't live in the abandoned house or hospital or the old prison.
Right.
Technically, we would say they're neither here nor there because they don't have a body. We say they are here or there if they're choosing to act in the location. So the question would be, if there is an evil spirit in a location, why is it choosing to act there? Was some horrific crime done there? Did somebody do some type of an occult activity? Sometimes it's the very things that paranormal investigators are doing that's attracting the attention of demons.
Yep. Yeah,
I had a paranormal investigator contact me and told me that he said that he encountered a demon And then he told the demon, you stay here, don't follow me home. But the reality is demons are more interested in attaching themselves to people as opposed to places,
Yeah.
because their overall goal would be to destroy and unravel our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's, correct me if I'm wrong too, that is the purpose of a demon, is to, well, actually, let me ask you this first. What is a demon?
A demon, the church would say, are fallen angels. So in the book of Revelation, it talks about how the tail of the dragon swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky. So it's the belief that before the creation of humans, God created the angelic world,
Mhm.
and God gave them great intellect and also free will. And then when God created the angels, they could complete their creation by choosing to unite their free will with the will of God.
Mhm.
But then Lucifer, along with 1/3 of the angels, said, no, thank you. Now, angels in a higher, choir, if you will, can influence those in a lower choir. So when Lucifer chose to rebel against God, his rebellion reverberated through all 9 choirs of angels, and then 1/3 of the angels embraced his rebellion against God, and then
Mhm.
they were cast out of heaven. Now, the interesting thing is they were cast out of heaven, but they weren't cast out of creation.
Mhm.
God can still use these fallen angels for whatever greater purpose that God may have.
Mhm.
St. Augustine would often speculate, when were the angels created? And he would comment on the book of Genesis, where God says, let there be light, and it was good. But then immediately the light is separated into day and darkness, but the separation is not called good. Now that's the first day of creation.
Yeah.
It can't be the sun, the stars, or the moon, because they're created on the 3rd day.
Yeah.
So what is this light that shoots out at the very beginning of creation? And St. Augustine would say that he believed that it was angelic life, if you will.
I was born and raised in Baptist school, so I, of course, heard the days of creation and all that stuff. And that's very interesting what you just said. I assumed that it was sunlight that God created on the first day, but you're right. He didn't do that until the 3rd day, created the sun and the moon and the stars. So that's
And when you think of
very
light,
interesting.
you usually think of intellect, reason,
Mhm. Yeah.
and that would be angelic creatures.
Yeah.
That, because an angel doesn't have to learn anything.
Mhm.
They received infused knowledge. It's like a computer being downloaded with information. That's why if somebody is possessed, when the demon is manifesting, the demon can speak any language. Doesn't
Mhm.
have to learn it. It can just call it up.
Yeah.
So there are signs that the church looks for to prove that it's truly a demon, as opposed to a mental health issue, a medical issue, or somebody that's just trying to put on some level of deception as a way to ridicule the church.
Yeah. How many how many cases do you get involved with per year that are actual demonic, whether it be possession or oppression or, whatever the stage happens to be?
There are 4 levels. So there's demonic infestation, the
Mhm.
presence of evil in a location, with an object, or even with an animal. We know based on chapter 5 of Mark's gospel, the man possessed by legion, Jesus cast him into the swine. So it is possible for even animals to be possessed. But then there is also demonic vexation, which are physical attacks, demonic obsession, which are mental attacks, and then demonic possession itself, whereby the devil or some other evil spirit will take control of a person's body, treating that body as if it were its own.
Mhm.
And anytime someone's possessed, it's always important to make the clear distinction between that person as an individual and now the demon that's using that body as if it were its own.
Mm.
So if I'm working with John Doe and a demon manifest, I would always say, well, the demon said this or the demon did that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that John Doe did it,
Mhm.
because people that are possessed that I've worked with, some will tell me that once the demon manifests, they're no longer have any recollection of what took place.
Mm.
Other people tell me that they're like a prisoner trapped in their own body. They're aware of everything that's going on, but they're powerless to do anything to stop it.
Hmm.
So I deal with hundreds of cases a year
Okay.
when it comes to these, 4 different types of extraordinary demonic activity: infestation, vexation, obsession, and possession.
Is
Possession is real. It's not as common as people think.
right.
Maybe 1 out of every 5,000 cases would be a genuine situation dealing with demonic possession.
Okay. And is it an elevated thing, like it starts out as one and then the end result is a possession if it's not dealt with before? Or is it can just start out as a possession immediately? Or is there always a lead up to that?
It's both. It
Okay.
could be a possession immediately, and it could be that somebody's dealing with some other type of the vexation or obsession, or
Mhm.
even the evil in the location that's ultimately trying to attach itself to a person. So it's really both. It
Okay.
could be a gradual escalation from one type to the other, or it can just begin with possession itself. But in
Okay.
these cases, it's always the person did something
Yep.
that opened the doorway to the demonic.
Yep.
And either they did that directly, they knew what they were doing was wrong, but they chose to do it anyway, indirectly because they thought it was fun and entertaining,
Mhm.
but didn't really understand the gravity of what they were putting themselves into.
Yeah. Yep. Um oh shoot, I had a follow up to that. What was it? Dang it. Okay. So in here again, I'm going to ask a question that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, but so I watched a paranormal video the other day, and I want to get your thoughts on this, so I'm going to describe what I saw in this video. This person was doing a 5-day paranormal tour, whatever, throughout 5 different locations I think it was actually in Indiana, and they claimed that I think it was the 3rd location, 2 of them got possessed, by a demon. And then the very next day, she's out joking around about it and, talking about how she thinks she brought her demon with her to this new location. Clearly, she wasn't possessed, but a possession doesn't ever leave on its own, does it? It always requires religious intervention, or is it possible that these people get possessed and then it jumps out of them? I mean, I does it need intervention of?
I would say that it's always a matter of faith. It doesn't mean that somebody needs to go through an official rite of
Mhm.
exorcism. If a person is engaged in faith themselves, it could go away. The danger might be that the demon convinces somebody that it's gone, but in
Mhm.
reality, it's still there.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And that,
that's
to me, in my opinion, that would probably be the more likelihood. The demon has convinced the person that it's not there, giving them a false sense of security
okay.
that they can continue to do what they want. But for me, it's always a matter of faith
Mhm.
that will drive out the demon.
Okay. Because a lot of these paranormal YouTube channels, they put demon in the headline. I was possessed. I was scratched. I was this. I was that. And it's like, I don't know that it works that way to where you get possessed, but then next week you're at a different location and everything's fine. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. Um,
Yeah, and that goes back to what I said earlier. It's not that the demon is living in a particular location.
right.
The demon is trying to attach itself to a person,
Hmm.
and they may think that somehow they left it behind, but in reality, that attachment may be there. Just because somebody is possessed doesn't mean they're manifesting all the time.
Okay.
To be possessed means that somebody has chosen to step outside of the realm of God and enter into the realm of Satan.
Okay.
And an exorcism really is about bringing the person back into the realm of God. I would
Hmm.
even say that casting a demon out is the easy part. It's convincing the person that they need to have that solid relationship with God that is the hard part. Because
Yeah.
I've had people, there's a growing trend, I think, to treat the exorcist as kind of a magician.
Yeah.
I have a problem, make it go away, but I want nothing to do with God.
Hmm.
But ultimately, the power rests with God. From the Christian perspective,
Yeah.
it's the name of Jesus, the power and the authority of his name
Right.
that cast out demons.
Hmm.
If people are relying on me, we're all in trouble.
Yeah.
But if they're relying on the power and the authority of Christ that's present in and through the church and its ministers, that's the right mentality to have.
Mhm. Was it you that I heard say, or maybe it was another exorcist that I watched an interview of, that the only time you ever got really, and I think the word they actually used was tossed during an exorcism, was when they kind of got a complacent attitude that they were the one exorcising the demon out of the person and not God. Like it they got a little cocky. Was that you or was that somebody else?
That wasn't me, because
Okay, okay.
when I trained in Rome before I left, the priest who trained me, the last bit of advice he gave me was this. He said, if you're ever doing an exorcism and for just a brief moment think to yourself,
Yeah.
wow, look at what I'm doing. He said,
Yep.
you've just walked on unholy ground, because it's always what God is doing. Because
Right.
when the priest starts thinking it's him, then
Mhm.
that's given into the sin of pride.
Yeah. Yeah, it was okay. It was probably somebody else then, and I thought that was interesting because I'm of that belief too, that like the second you think you're doing it, you open yourself up to get in big trouble.
Yeah, because when your focus is on you, then
Right.
you kind of stepped away from God,
Hmm.
and then you're more vulnerable to the demonic attacks.
Right. Right. And I think another, and maybe I'm wrong about this one too. So, is there ever anything such as an emergency exorcism, like you get called, you leave your house, and you go and do one right away, or is it always done at the church with? Because there's preparation that takes place before you would actually do an
Yeah.
exorcism, correct?
Yeah, there is no such thing as an emergency exorcism.
Okay.
It's a very methodical process. That doesn't mean that if somebody is being afflicted, you wouldn't pray with them, for
Yeah.
example, but not an exorcism right away.
Right.
That's a place where we may get to, but we
Hmm.
don't begin with that,
Right.
because I need to really understand the situation.
Hmm.
And you're right, exorcisms are only performed in a sacred space.
Right. Yep.
It's from a Catholic perspective, it's a liturgical rite. So
Hmm.
there is a prescribed way for it to be done.
Right. What's your opinion? And again, if you don't want to answer any question, that's fine. I'll even cut out the question if you don't want to answer this. But do you have an opinion on like these deliverance ministries that say it's pretty popular in the Pentecostal church right now? It seems to be. There's a lot of these deliverance ministers that are having these mass church services where they're doing exorcisms. They say
I
or
think,
they may not call it exorcism, but they're casting demons out of people, which is basically the same thing, just a non-Catholic term for it.
yeah, I think the danger with some of that is that people are starting to see the devil everywhere.
Hmm.
And I don't think that's a healthy approach. Even as a Catholic exorcist, I'm more focused on the presence of God,
Hmm.
having people focus on God in their life rather than a demonic. I don't think it's ever healthy to begin seeing the devil everywhere and
Yeah.
somehow believe that everybody has some type of demonic attachment. That,
Hmm.
to me, that's giving too much attention, credence
Yep.
to the devil, when the main focus always should be on God.
Right. That's
Now,
probably.
for me, one of the ways I like to look at it is going back to that line in Genesis, "Let there be light." Exorcism is really about turning on the light of Christ in the
Mhm.
lives of people who have fallen into the darkness of the devil.
Yep.
So the focus should always be on God. But again, there are, even within the Catholic Church, there may be some deliverance ministries where people start to see the devil everywhere. And I just don't think,
Yeah.
in my perspective, that that's a healthy approach.
Hmm. Yeah, I've seen that like I said, a lot in the Pentecostal movement, or the Pentecostal church, or it is look for the devil everywhere. It's it does tend to focus on that quite a bit, and I agree with you that that's not the right thing that they should be focusing on. Um, so what? Okay, so like I told you before, I'm sure you're aware that there's a lot of fake clergy, fake exorcists running around out there doing their thing. What is the danger in what they're doing? I mean, how can it harm people? This again is another question where I kind of have thoughts on the answer, but like I want your take on it.
I think one of the key components of performing exorcism is obedience and authority. And I think when people deceive others and pretend to be something that they're not, I don't think it's possible to cast out the devil using deceit and pretending to be something that one is not.
Right.
I've known a priest, for example, who was doing an exorcism and didn't have permission to do it. And when the demon manifested, the demon looked at him and said, I don't have to listen to anything you say
Oh.
because you don't have any authority to do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, to me, if one is caught up in lies and deception and you're trying to cast the devil out, that's not going to work, because even the line in scripture where Jesus says that, Satan cannot be divided against himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel too that like the actual person doing it, if they ever actually encountered a real demon, I think they would get, tossed around, if you know what I'm saying, because they're not under God's authority. They're out there doing it on their own.
There was a gentleman one time on the East Coast who contacted me, and he believed he was possessed by demons.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with him and even got him a counselor. But it was very clear it wasn't demonic in nature. It was a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't want to accept that. And unfortunately, if people believe they're dealing with the demonic, they're going to find somebody that will validate their thought or their belief. So he contacted me a couple months after that and said that he had found a professional exorcist who told him he was possessed by 5 demons, but charged him $1,500 each to cast them out. And he actually paid the guy the $7,500.
Wow.
He was so desperate. I think that's a danger where obviously the guy is suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But, is it spiritual suffering? Is it mental? Is it physical? I mean, I can't tell people what they want to hear. I have to tell them what I believe to be the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there are people out there that will prey on those who believe they're dealing with the demonic simply as a way to make a buck.
Yeah, I've just to give you a little bit of my background, I've done casework in residential cases for a lot of years. People call us and say they have paranormal issues, and a lot of them do start out thinking it's demonic, and they don't want to be told a lot of times that it's not. You know what I mean? They don't like it when you tell them this is what it is. It's your pipes clanking, or whatever. Or they really, if you determine that like this really looks like some kind of mental problem, they don't want to. They want to blame something else rather than admitting that they have a problem. So a lot of them, like you said, they do want to shop around then, and they're like, well, I don't like your answer, so I'm going to go find somebody else. And sure enough, they'll find people to tell them what they want to hear, and then like you said in your case, and then charge them $1,500 each. Oh, that's crazy. Let's see. I have a few more questions. So do you have to be a Catholic to have help from the Catholic Church? Like if people have spiritual problems?
No, because the Catholic Church would view exorcism ministry as a ministry of charity.
Okay.
So the church would help anyone. Half the people that contact me are not Catholic.
Yeah.
They come from other Christian faith traditions, other world religions, no faith background whatsoever.
Yep.
But again, if they contact the Catholic Church, then I will operate the way the church approaches the ministry. So, for example, if somebody is Jewish, I don't adapt the rite of exorcism for their belief system. They just have to know that I can only function according to what the church believes and teaches.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is another thing that a lot of like skeptical people would, or non-Christians would ask. Why does God allow people to be demonic possessed?
I think that's an age-old question, going back to the book of Job, where God permits Satan to afflict Job. And God, the interesting thing about this, the book of Job, is that Job pours his heart out to God and he keeps asking why. And God doesn't answer him. I think the answer may come in the New Testament, in Paul's second letter to the Corinthians in chapter 12, verse 9, where the line is, my grace is sufficient for you. Meaning, if we're in the midst of affliction, if we know that God is with us, then we know that we have what we need to get through it. Because, even what is grace? We hear that word tossed out a lot, even the popular song, Amazing Grace. But for me, one of the ways to understand grace, it's It's practicing the presence of God. It's to be aware that we are always in the presence of God, no matter where we are or what we're doing. And if we truly believe that God is with us, what is there to fear? You
Yeah.
think of Psalm 23, even though I walk through the dark valley, I fear no evil, for you are at my side.
Mm-hmm.
So even in the midst of pain and suffering, we might even take your question a bit further and say, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people?
Yeah.
Why is there pain and suffering in the world? God never promised that we wouldn't suffer, but God promised that we would not be overcome. And I think, to me, that's the key ingredient, is just to practice the presence of God, just to realize that God is always with us.
Yeah.
There's that line in scripture, where two or more are gathered, there am I in the midst of them. It's the notion that we're not alone. It's interesting, when I was doing theological studies, there's an old papyrus leaf that has a reference to that scripture passage. But this papyrus leaf reads, where two or more are gathered, there am I in the midst of them. But when there is one, he is not alone.
Mm.
Now, that second part is not a part of the Bible.
Right.
But just speculating on that, it realizes that we're never alone. I think oftentimes when people experience some type of affliction, somehow they feel that they've been abandoned by God. But I think that in the midst of pain and suffering, God is probably more real and present to us than at any other time in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And this may be even scripture too, that you'll never be given more than you can handle. And, or God will never afflict more on you than you can handle. And I tell you, he's taken me to the edge a few times, but I do agree with that statement.
I think I agree with that. But, we might think our breaking point is here.
Yeah.
But God knows it's here.
Yeah. Right.
But like exercise, stretching is not fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Like God may want to stretch us so that we realize that maybe we're stronger than we think.
Yep. Again, a couple more here. So what is one of the craziest things you've ever witnessed that is not humanly possible while, dealing with someone that's possessed?
I've seen all kinds of bizarre things. Bodily levitation, bodies drop to the floor and slither like a snake across the floor, eyes rolled in the back of the head, bodily contortions, facial contortions, growling, foaming at the mouth, eyeballs turning green. People would say, well, how is that possible? The word supernatural should only be used for God. Only God is supernatural, because that word means outside of nature. And only God is outside of the natural order, because, again, as we learn from the book of Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What does that tell us? In the beginning, God creates time. The heavens, God creates space. The earth, God creates matter. So God is the creator of time, space, and matter, which means God is outside of all of that, which means God is supernatural. Now, angelic creatures, good or fallen, demons, we would say they're preternatural. They're above our understanding of the natural order, because they're pure spirits. They don't have a body. So they can do things that we would say, well, that's not possible. But again, they're above our understanding of nature. So they can cause bodies to levitate and everything else that I described.
Yeah. Yep. I've always been curious about this because, skeptics will say there's no such thing as demons or possession. How's come the Catholic Church has never put out any video of things like that, like levitation or anything like that, just to show people that it really is real? I mean, I understand it. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the client's anonymity, but I just think it would serve a purpose for the Catholic Church to show some of that stuff. That's just my opinion. You may or may not agree, but it seems like there would be a good purpose to show some of that stuff, so people would be like, oh, okay, that does really exist. I mean, me personally, if you tell me you've witnessed that, I believe you 100%, because like I said, I've watched you in other places and things like that. So I believe you to be 1000% credible. So, but I know a lot of people, view it from a skeptical mindset. And
I'm thinking of the line where Thomas doubts the resurrection, and Jesus says to him, you know, happy are those who have not seen and yet believe.
Yeah.
Because I think even if they were filmed, you would still have skeptics who would say, well, it's all been manipulated and distorted and all of that type of thing.
Yeah, that's gonna pertain to anything that's on video.
And I think ultimately it goes back to what you touched on. It's about
Mhm.
protecting the identity of the person in question, because
Right.
really the church wants to turn the light of Christ on in the lives of these people, not necessarily the lights of the cameras, if you will.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's really it's a matter of faith, and that's like like confession. I don't think anybody would want their confession to be
Yeah.
recorded and broadcast out there.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't want mine. Yes, for sure. So, do you videotape them for within the Catholic Church's purpose? Like,
No, it's not
okay.
permitted. It's
Okay.
it's very clear in the rite of exorcism
Okay.
that there can be no recordings. I know that people may be familiar with Father Gabriel Amorth,
Yes.
the former chief exorcist in Rome. He
Mhm.
passed away in 2016.
Yep.
I had the opportunity to meet him in 2012.
Mhm.
But supposedly someone claimed that he gave permission for them to record an exorcism that he did. But the video that's out there, it looks like it's done on a cell phone. The quality is not very good. And, I would find it hard to believe that somehow he would defy church
Mm.
rules, if you will,
Yeah.
and permit something like that. So,
Yeah, I think I have seen that. It was an Italian lady that he did that
yeah.
with. Correct. Yeah, I think I have seen that.
But again, the video is not very good at all. And I don't know that that would convince anybody one way or the other.
Right. Yep. Yep. Let's see here. I think that's pretty much all I had for now. Oh, let's talk about your book for a second, because I know you don't self-promote very often. It seems like people have to get you to talk about your own book, but why don't you go ahead? Here's the book right here, so people can see.
Exorcism: The Battle Against Satan and
Yeah.
His Demons.
Yep.
I wrote that book a few years ago just as an opportunity to really spell out clearly what the church believes and teaches, and to talk about some of my experiences in the ministry of exorcism.
Yep. Where can people get it?
It's available online, the normal
Amazon.
places.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think it's an easy read. It gives people, it's not too technical, but really gives people at least a better understanding of what the church believes and teaches about the ministry itself.
Yeah, because there is a lot of misinformation out there, big time, with what demons are and what exorcisms are and things like that. So that's that. Again, I said it 4 or 5 times already, but that's why I had you on. I really want you to explain from the official Catholic Church, what some of these things are. So
yeah, and the important thing is to give people the information, and then again, what they do with that is up to them.
Yep.
At least it's very clear what the church believes and teaches.
Yeah. Yep. Because in the world of paranormal YouTube, there's not a whole lot of accurate information going around about demons. So I appreciate your time, and I thank you so much for joining me and letting me ask you questions.
Yeah, you're welcome, Jeff. I've enjoyed our conversation.
Great, thank you. I hope to so you're in southern Indiana, right on the Ohio border. How far are you from Bath, Indiana?
Oh, that's within my parish boundaries.
Okay, because I might be going down there soon, and if I do, I'll send you an email, and maybe we could meet for lunch or something like that. So
yeah, that's probably probably about 15 minutes away.
Okay, perfect. All right, man. Thank you so much.
All right, Jeff. Take care. God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.